bis zur Entscheidung. Und dass es dabei auch sehr fair zugeht, das haben wir in Zandvoort festgestellt.
Auf den ersten Blick ein Formel-1-Training wie jedes andere. In den Dünen von Zandvoort zum 13. Grand-Prix der Saison. Die Bühne ist bereit für zwei Hauptdarsteller, die heuer absolut dominieren. Niki Lauda und Alain Prost, die beiden McLaren-Piloten, Protagonisten eines High Noon in Sachen Rennsport. Harmonie nach außen hin, Konkurrenten werden im Training beobachtet, ihre Zeiten kontrolliert. Der schärfste Konkurrent, Nelson Piquet, der Vorjahrsweltmeister, dreht sich. Die Maske verbirgt Emotionen vor dem letzten Training. Zwei Stallgefährten im direkten Duell. Nummer 7 gegen Nummer 8. Im Abschlusstraining wird Niki Lauda von Keke Rosberg und Manfred Winkelhock behindert. Das hindert ihn, schnellere Trainingszeiten zu erreichen. Gefährlich wird die Situation, als Lauda von Rosberg fast gerammt wird. Nur als Sechstbester kommt Lauda an die Box. Bestzeit für den nervösen Franzosen, der dennoch jede Rivalität zu seinem Teamkollegen Lauda leugnet. Natürlich hat jeder auf einen Streit der beiden Weltmeisterschaftsfavoriten gewartet. Wir kämpfen zwar im Rennen gegeneinander, aber im Team helfen wir einander. Bemerkenswert die Aussage von Prost, dass ihm die Freundschaft zu Lauda wichtiger ist als die Weltmeisterschaft. Natürlich versucht man kleine Vorteile für sich herauszuholen, doch wir verstehen uns sehr gut.
We are good friends, and even if winning the championship, I think it's not so important. When I try to beat him, but everybody is very honest. We did a very good team this year.
Ja, ich glaube, wir haben ein sehr gutes Arbeitsverhältnis. Wir wissen, was wir beide wollen. Und im Auto, die Arbeit ist optimal.
We try to fight together, but we find the best solution.
Wir versuchen gemeinsam das Beste für das Team herauszuholen, um die Konkurrenz leichter besiegen zu können. Alain Prost hat schon oft durch seine Nervosität die Chancen auf einen Sieg verspielt. So wie zum Beispiel im letzten Jahr, hier in Zandvoort, als er beim Anbremsen der schwierigen Tarzankurve Piquet rammt und später ausscheiden muss. Prost schiebt dies allerdings der Ungunst des Augenblicks zu. Seine vielen Ausfälle, wie etwa vor einer Woche im Zeltweg, lassen doch hohe nervliche Belastung erahnen. Das war schließlich das endgültige Aus 1983 in Zandvoort. Renntag in Zandvoort. Prost fährt als Trainingsschnellster auf seinen Startplatz Nummer 1. 28 Minuten vor der Startzeit bemerkt man bei Lauda einen Riss im Wasserkühler. Sogar Teamchef Ron Dennis legt Hand an. Man könnte dies als Indiz dafür werten, dass Dennis nicht nur Prost bevorzugt. Sogar der kühle Niki Lauda zeigt Nerven.
Kühler Wechsel und schauen, dass man rechtzeitig hinauskommt.
Und wenn es sich nicht mehr ausgeht mit dem Ersatzwagen?
Das Ersatzauto wird schon mit eisgekühltem Benzin betankt. Aber Niki Lauda kann dennoch in sein Auto steigen. Sieben Minuten vor High Noon sozusagen kann Lauda doch noch mit dem Originalwagen an den Start gehen. Das Duell.
On to Holland and happy hippie Zandvoort. Avoiding the traffic jams, some came to the circuit on foot. Some approached by sea. Zandvoort can be a windy place, but the local drivers have adapted to the conditions. Race day was fine enough for Renault's Larousse to wear shades. Rosberg was breathing fire as usual. To cool him down, the Williams engineers installed a cold drink system in his car so that he could suck juice through his helmet. Mansell had just been told that the Williams team would have a drink button for him next year too. Rosberg was reported to be less than crazy about this prospect, but the talking point receded into the background as they revved up for the start.
This weekend, the 1984 Motor Racing World Championship has come to Holland for round 13 of the 16-race championship, and it's come to Zandvoort, one of the circuits that's been in the World Championship almost since it began in the early 1950s. The circuit runs through the sand dunes on the edge of a seaside town full of holidaymakers. Actually getting into the circuit is always a problem, and most people do it on foot, having come to the little railway station from Amsterdam rather than trying to attempt it by car. This late in the season, the championship now seems to be between the McLaren twins, Niki Lauda and Alain Prost. But once again, it's Nelson Piquet who's got the speed, if not the reliability. Practice is a battle between Prost and Piquet, and only because Piquet spins on his final lap does the little hook-nosed Frenchman Alain Prost once again take pole position. He's currently second in the World Championship, 4.5 points behind Niki Lauda, his own teammate, so he's delighted with his pole position. But Nelson Piquet is still alongside, despite that spin. Piquet's almost out of things in the World Championship, having had a lot of unlucky retirements. When he's finished, he's been first or second. Elio De Angelis, 1984's most consistent driver, who seems to score championship points almost every time out with the Lotus. He still hasn't had a win since that Austrian victory 2 years ago, but once again he's well up on the grid. Alongside him in fourth place, Derek Warwick in the faster of the two Renaults. Another man who hasn't really got enough championship points to hope to be in the running for the title this late in the year, but a man still looking for his first win. Patrick Tambay, more experienced than Warwick, not quite as quick usually, but he's fifth quickest in practice. He's only got 9 championship points so far, and he can only look for wins and not titles. But this man does look for a title. Niki Lauda, back in the lead in the World Championship, 48 points with his own teammate Alain Prost, his closest challenger. He's 6th on the grid.
For today's Dutch Grand Prix, the Formula One teams have moved across Europe from the Styrian mountains of Austria to the wind-swept sand dunes of Zandvoort, just a few hundred metres from the North Sea. In just 7 days, they've returned to their bases, rebuilt their cars, reassembled in Holland, and practiced for today's round 13 of this year's 16-race World Championship, now with a new leader and the result far from settled. With the Austrian veteran Niki Lauda now 4.5 points ahead of his teammate Alain Prost, who in turn leads Elio De Angelis by 17 points, with René Arnoux, Nelson Piquet and Derek Warwick close behind, it looks as though one of the McLaren men must become the 1984 world champion. But which one? For Lauda means to win his 3rd championship, as much as Prost means to become the first ever French world champion. But thanks to Prost and Lauda, McLaren are now virtually unbeatable in the Constructors' Championship. The Dutch Grand Prix has a well-earned reputation for producing close racing and unexpected results. But there's nothing unexpected about today's starting grid positions. For the 6th time this year, the front row is shared by Alain Prost and Nelson Piquet, with the Frenchman on pole thanks to a scorching 130 miles an hour average around Zandvoort's 2.6-mile lap. Elio De Angelis is 3rd, ahead of the Renaults of Derek Warwick and Patrick Tambay, with Lauda 6th, Rosberg and Lafitte 7th and 8th, ahead of Alboreto, Fabi, Boutsen and Nigel Mansell, with Jonathan Palmer in at 22nd.
13. Lauf zur diesjährigen Formel 1 Weltmeisterschaft. Grüß Gott, meine sehr geehrten Damen und Herren, und herzlich willkommen von der holländischen Dünenrennstrecke in Zandvoort. Bevor wir aber auf der Strecke live dabei sind, noch ein paar Impressionen von der Stadt Zandvoort. Ein Badeort an der holländischen Nordsee, hat sogar ein eigenes Casino. Das ist die langjährige Freundin von Riccardo Patrese. Nicht nur Rennfahrerfrauen und Rennfahrerfreundinnen, aber in den Straßen von Zandvoort. Jedes Jahr ein klassischer Grand Prix, ein sehr stimmungsvolles Rennen mit zumeist auch sehr dramatischem Rennverlauf. Niki Lauda geht zum ersten Mal seit 1,5 Jahren als Führender der Weltmeisterschaft in einen Grand Prix. Nach seinem Österreich-Grand Prix-Sieg 4,5 Punkte Vorsprung auf Alain Prost, dann De Angelis, Arnoux, der Vorjahrssieger von Zandvoort, Piquet, der Vorjahrsweltmeister. Und das ist der Lotus Renault von Elio De Angelis. Dritter im Training, Dritter auch in der Weltmeisterschaft, hat einen Platz in der ersten Startreihe nur ganz knapp verpasst, nämlich um 1/100 Sekunde. Elio De Angelis war hier in Zandvoort 1981 einmal Fünfter, ansonsten ist er hier nie ins Ziel gekommen. Er glaubt, dass der Lotus das beste Chassis ist. Probleme kommen eigentlich nur von den neuen amerikanischen Radialreifen, wie er geglaubt hat. De Angelis immer im Ziel in dieser Saison, bis die beiden letzten Rennen anstanden. Hockenheim, wo er zum ersten Mal geführt hat, und Zeltweg zweimal ausgeschieden. Sie erinnern sich sicherlich noch an den dramatischen Ausfall von De Angelis, als sein Lotus in Zeltweg am Heck Feuer gefangen hat. Lotus ist eine sehr erfolgreiche Marke auf dem Dünenrennkurs von Zandvoort. Nur Ferrari hat öfter Rennen gewonnen, nämlich 8-mal. Lotus gewann hier 6-mal. De Angelis wird übrigens bei Lotus bleiben. Am Dienstag wird das neue Lotus-Team bekannt gegeben. Peter War im Bild wird Elio De Angelis und auch Ayrton Senna, den Brasilianer, als ein neues Fahrerteam vorstellen. Alain Prost ist Zweiter der Weltmeisterschaft, 4,5 Punkte hinter Niki Lauda. Der Franzose fuhr hier in Zandvoort gestern Trainingsbestzeit. 13 Grand Prix-Siege bis jetzt, die 13. Pole Position und der 13. Weltmeisterschaftslauf. Wie das für Abergläubische oder Nicht-Abergläubische zusammenpassen wird, werden wir später sehen. Auf alle Fälle 4 Autos zwischen dem trainingsschnellsten Alain Prost und Niki Lauda in der 3. Startreihe auf dem 6. Startplatz. Das sind natürlich noch Aufnahmen aus dem Training. Prost hat am Samstag einen längeren 3. und 4. Gang bekommen, hatte ein absolut problemloses Training im Gegensatz zu Niki Lauda, der eine Reihe von Problemen gehabt hat, die ihn eigentlich bis heute Vormittag zum Aufwärmtraining mit vollen Tanks begleitet haben. Apropos Aufwärmtraining, Bestzeit fuhr heute Vormittag Alain Prost mit 1,17,9, gefolgt von Niki Lauda mit 1,19,3. Kein anderer unter 1,20. Die nächstschnellsten De Angelis, Fabi, Senna, Menzel, Arnoux, Piquet, Alboreto und Warwick. Und an 23. Stelle der Österreicher Jo Gardner vor seinem 5. Grand Prix mit 1,24,2. Alain Prost also in der Pole Position in Zandvoort. Hat einige dramatische Rennen in Zandvoort bereits erlebt. 1980 Sechster, 1981 gewonnen. Und das ist der Weltmeisterschaftsführende. Niki Lauda 48 Punkte, davon allein 24 in den letzten 3 Rennen. Sieger in Brands Hatch, Zweiter in Hockenheim und Sieger auf dem Österreich-Ring. Taktik von Niki Lauda, ja nicht auf Verteidigen oder auf Ankommen zu fahren, sondern voll anzugreifen, um den Punktevorsprung wenn möglich auszubauen. Aber Niki Lauda, hier sehen Sie ihn mit Ingenieur Hahn aus Zuffenhausen, einem der Porsche-Ingenieure. Niki Lauda hatte, wie gesagt, im Training Probleme. Freitag ein defekter Startermotor. Ein Drehzahlbegrenzer, der durch die Erschütterung höchstwahrscheinlich schon zu früh abgeriegelt hat, nämlich bereits bei 11.000 statt bei 12.000 Umdrehungen. Gestern im Training aufgehalten worden, einmal von Winkelhock unabsichtlich und einmal von Keke Rosberg, der gerade nicht in den Rückspiegel geschaut hat. Das hat Niki Lauda auf dem 6. Startplatz festgenagelt, obwohl er sich zeitmäßig etwas verbessern konnte. Und heute sind die Probleme im Aufwärmtraining weitergegangen. Niki Lauda kann den Ladedruck nicht richtig einstellen. Der Ladedruck geht ihm immer etwas zu hoch. Was er nicht haben will, ist ein offensichtlicher Defekt bei der Regelung des Ladedrucks. Und dazu kamen noch Probleme. Der Kühler von Niki Lauda musste im letzten Augenblick noch gewechselt werden. Niki Lauda nicht mit dem Ersatzauto, das ihm an diesem Wochenende zusteht, sondern mit seinem eigentlichen Rennfahrzeug, an dem, wie gesagt, der Kühler gewechselt wurde und an dem hoffentlich der Ladedruck richtig eingestellt werden kann. Apropos Ladedruck, 2,2 wird der Ladedruck für Niki Lauda und Alain Prost betragen, genau wie in Brands Hatch, wie in Hockenheim und wie in Zeltweg. Natürlich können die Fahrer während der Fahrt den Ladedruck verstellen, nach oben quasi unbegrenzt, nach unten nur, soweit die Feder des Ladedruckreglers dies zulässt, um etwa 7 Zehntel. Noch ein paar Impressionen von der Zandvoort-Rennstrecke, auf der, wie gesagt, zum 33. Mal der große Preis von Holland gefahren wird. Ein sehr motorsportbegeistertes Land. Leider ist Zandvoort auch berühmt für seine dramatischen Zwischenfälle. Heute zum Beispiel ist unmittelbar vor dem Aufwärmtraining eine Tribüne eingestürzt, und zwar eine Plattform auf dem Boxendach unmittelbar über der Osella bzw. ATS-Box. Die Folge 20 Verletzte, 2 davon schwer Verletzte und unter den Verletzten auch der Aeros-Teamchef Jackie Oliver und sein, ich glaube, 12-jähriger Sohn Jason haben Verletzungen am Arm, Ellbogen bzw. am Knöchel davongetragen. Glück für Jo Gardner und Glück auch für Manfred Winkelhock, dass diese beiden Fahrer nicht gerade aus den Boxen herausgekommen sind. Glück vor allem für die ATS-Mechaniker, die zu diesem Zeitpunkt gerade am ATS gearbeitet haben, ihn dann in die Box hineingeschoben haben, und wenige Sekunden später ist dann diese Plattform eingestürzt und sind 20 Leute heruntergestürzt auf die Fahrbahn und mussten mit schweren Verletzungen von insgesamt 8 Ambulanzen in die Spitäler gebracht werden. Lebensgefahr dürfte Gott sei Dank bei keinem der Verletzten stehen. Und noch einmal Aufregung im Aufwärmtraining, das da mit einiger Verspätung begonnen hat. Kollision zwischen dem Franzosen Philippe Alliot und Gardners Stallkollegen, nämlich dem Italiener Ginzani. Alliot hat sich gedreht, Ginzani ist gegen den Rem hart gefahren, aber keine Verletzten. Noch ein Blick zum Trainingsschnellsten Alain Prost. Die Formel-1-Fans unter Ihnen werden sich sicherlich noch erinnern, dass er voriges Jahr hier beim Anbremsen der Tarzan-Kurve die berühmte Kollision mit Nelson Piquet gehabt hat, die ihn schlussendlich wahrscheinlich voriges Jahr den Weltmeistertitel gekostet hat. Und die Lauda-Fans unter Ihnen wissen sicherlich, dass Niki Lauda vor genau einem Jahr hier in Zandvoort mit dem McLaren TAC Turbo debütiert hat. Ist ein sehr anständiges Rennen gefahren, musste dann allerdings wegen Problemen mit den Bremsen aufgeben. Der Motor war quasi damals wie heute eigentlich der gleiche, nur das Auto hat man natürlich rundherum wesentlich verändert. Das ist Nelson Piquet, der Erzfeind von Alain Prost, steht wieder in der ersten Reihe neben dem Franzosen. Niki Lauda steht vor einem sehr schwierigen Rennen. Ich glaube, dass der heutige Grand Prix von Zandvoort relativ schwer zu kalkulieren ist. Ein sicherlich heikles Rennen. Der Brepem ist sicherlich der schnellste Wagen auf der Geraden, 304 Kilometer pro Stunde. Und die Höchstgeschwindigkeit ist hier auf der langen Geraden von Zandvoort natürlich besonders wichtig. Die Frage ist, wie weit sich Prost in ein volles Duell mit Piquet einlassen wird, eingedenk seiner Kollision von Zandvoort 1983, eingedenk des umstrittenen Manövers in der Schikane unmittelbar nach dem Start, in der sich Piquet an Prost vorbeigebremst hat, an der gleichen Stelle, an der es schon voriges Jahr zwischen den beiden eine Kollision gegeben hat. Hier aber Elio De Angelis links, einer seiner vielen Brüder, und rechts sein Manager, ein Argentinier. Elio De Angelis sagt, er würde in den Weltmeisterschaftskampf zwischen Lauda und Prost eigentlich nicht eingreifen, er würde sich als Gentleman betragen, er würde weder den einen behindern, noch den anderen vielleicht forcieren. Eine rasche Umfrage unter den Grand Prix-Piloten ergibt folgendes Ergebnis. 13 Fahrer glauben, dass Niki Lauda heuer Weltmeister wird. 9 tippen auf Alain Prost, unter ihnen die beiden Williams-Fahrer Keke Rosberg und Jacques Lafitte, die in der Startaufstellung unmittelbar hinter Niki Lauda, also in der 4. Reihe stehen werden. Derek Warwick hat voriges Jahr hier in Zandvoort für sich und den Toleman Turbo die ersten Weltmeisterschaftspunkte erreicht. 4. ist er damals geworden. Mittlerweile hat das Toleman-Team einen neuen Spitzenfahrer entdeckt, nämlich Ayrton Senna, der allerdings, wie gesagt, schon für Lotus unterschrieben hat. Dienstag wird das offiziell werden und Toleman hat bereits angekündigt, Ayrton Senna, dieses Wunderkind der Formel 1, wegen Nichterfüllung seines 3-Jahres-Vertrags zu verklagen. Frage also, wie weit wird Renault in diesem Grand Prix mitspielen? Derek Warwick und Patrick Tambay warten ja schon die ganze Saison auf den ersten Sieg. Seit 16 Rennen, seit Zeltweg 1983, damals durch Alain Prost, ist Renault ohne Sieg in der Formel 1. Die Renault waren im Training auf der Geraden etwas schneller als Niki Lauda und Alain Prost in ihren McLarens etwa gleich schnell wie Michele Alboreto mit dem Ferrari. Es könnte also durchaus die Situation eintreten, dass sich Alain Prost vorne an der Spitze nicht...
Well, we're all obviously waiting for the start of what could be a crucial race in the World Championship, but the whole pit lane is agog with news that Ayrton Senna, the brilliant Brazilian driver, has signed for the John Player Special Team Lotus organisation for 1985 and 86. I understand there's going to be an official announcement on Tuesday, but from the satisfied looks on the Team Lotus team and the rather downcast expressions of the Tolman team, I can only assume that that is true, in which case it is a sensational move because Senna was in Formula 3, the British champion last year. He's done very well in the Tolman team this year, and if he gets into the Renault-powered JPS team next year, we can really expect him to fly. Now, the question then is, who is going to be the other driver if this news is indeed correct? Is it going to be Nigel Mansell or is it going to be Elio De Angelis? I can get no official word on that, so all I can say is watch your papers on Tuesday.
Yes, I have an unofficial word on that, and that is that, as I understand it, the rumour is that Nigel Mansell is going to go to the Frank Williams team, which presumably means then that JPS will be keeping on Elio De Angelis, and Senna will be joining them there. But it's an interesting move from Senna. It's one that I would think is a little bit doubtful because he's broken a 3-year contract, or he will have done if he succeeds in going, because Tolman had signed Senna for 3 years. My greatest sympathy to the Tolman team, who have done such a good job for Senna and, as it were, put him on the map this year. But I would have thought that it was a tricky decision because really Senna was being sought after by just about every team, and I was surprised that he made a move other than to a top team that's actually winning Grand Prix at the moment, and Lotus can't quite claim that. And quite honestly, to break a 3-year contract to go to something that isn't, as it were, a dead cert seems to me a dangerously speculative move.
Well, we'll know the ins and outs of that, I suspect, when we get this official announcement next week. But meantime, all ready for the 71-lap, 187.6 mile, round 13 of the 16-round World Championship of 1984 here at Zandvoort in Holland. When we arrived this morning, it was overcast, misty, dull. The sun is trying to break through now, and I'm expecting it to be hot later on during the race. And that could be very significant indeed, because obviously the heat of the track affects the wear of the tyres. We know that Alain Prost, who is in pole position, that's the left car in the front of your picture, has got hard compound tyres all round. We know that Nelson Piquet has got softer tyres on the right than he has on the left, and it could turn on that decision who will win today's race. So away they go around the warm-up lap. In pole position, Prost, followed by Nelson Piquet. Then behind Prost is De Angelis. Behind Nelson Piquet is Derek Warwick. There are 27 competitors in this race because, due to the political situation over the Tyrrell team, Huub Rotengatter, the Dutch driver, not surprisingly, has been allowed into his own home Grand Prix in his Spirit parked car. And the Williams cars are well up on the grid compared with some of their positions in the past. They're in 7th and 8th positions. The Ferraris are down in 9th and 15th places, and the warm-up lap is well underway.
Yes, now you see the cars. They've just gone round the very tight round the back of the pits complex, which is the Tarzan corner taken in second gear, followed by a little right-hand flick and onto the famous Hunsrück hairpin. And now they've gone away around the back to the very fast sweeping section of this Zandvoort circuit. They come down the hill, this long right-hander, and then a short straight. And this is one of the chicanes that have been put into the track to slow the cars down round the back of the circuit. It's been here for some years now. And there goes the field. Nicky Lauda just going through there. He qualified in 6th place. He's had quite a lively and exciting morning today. He had trouble with his turbocharger in the warm-up this morning. A valve on the wastegate went, so it was not holding turbocharged pressure, so he had no boost on his engine. They fixed that, and then just as he was about to go out, they found a leaking radiator on the car. So in a big panic, they changed that and got him out about 10 minutes late onto the grid, but all appears to be well and running now. Now, this is the second of the two chicanes. This was the one that was put in earlier to slow the cars down from this very fast sweeping bit. And then they come up the hill here, as you see, and over the brow where the car goes very light, and they take this corner pretty well flat out in top gear at something like 170 miles an hour as they come back onto the main straight, where they get a good long run down to the start-finish line, and then the heavy braking area at the end of it for the second gear Tarzan corner.
Well, form says, of course, that a McLaren's going to win this race, especially with Prost in pole position. And even though Nicky Lauda's down in 6th place, we know from having seen him in the past that he can get into gear pretty quickly and work his way up through the field. But this is very much a race that Nelson Piquet, second fastest on the grid, and he actually led the first time session, will want very badly to win. You can see it's still rather misty. Doesn't affect their view of the first corner, Tarzan, which they will come down to, and very, very quickly indeed when those lights turn to green. And the cars forming up at the back. Derek Ongaro, the British official starter, waiting to set off the Dutch Grand Prix for 71 laps. The grid official clears it. The red lights are on. Go, and out from the back comes Keke Rosberg, and Piquet leads into Tarzan from Prost, with Derek Warwick going through and passing the JPS of Elio De Angelis. So the British driver Derek Warwick is up into 3rd position. It's Piquet leading, Prost 2nd, Warwick 3rd, De Angelis 4th. Then it's Patrick Tambay, and Keke Rosberg is well up, and Huub Rotengatter in the Dutch orange painted Spirit is bringing up the rear.
Yes, well, that was one of Piquet's best starts of the season, but conversely, I was watching the middle of the field, and Nicky Lauda was very slow away, and is in fact down in something like 11th or 12th place from his 6th position on the grid. So the World Championship leader has given himself an awful lot of work to do to catch his main rival, Alain Prost, who's away running in 2nd place, and that is Manfred Winkelhock's ATS that has only made it about a quarter of a mile. and whatever his trouble is, it doesn't look as if he's going to be involved for much longer. So, the World Championship, something really to think about. Prost in second place, well ahead of his teammate Lauda, and look at, there's Niki Lauda, and look at all that traffic he's got to deal with to get up on terms, and a bit of a little shunt there, two cars making contact.
Yes, it was Francois Hainaut and Eddie Cheever. Hainaut in the Ligier. There is Eddie Cheever, who's had a pretty fraught practice with turbos going left, right and centre. Piquet leads, Prost is second, Warwick is third, De Angelis is fourth, Keke Rosberg is up into fifth position, and now you see them going round Tarzan. They approach that at some 180 miles an hour, and there's Piquet, Prost. There's the Renault of Patrick Tambay in third position. Derek Warwick then is in fifth position as Senna goes through, chased by René Arnoux. Now, Tambay is ahead of De Angelis, who is ahead of Rosberg. There's Warwick. Then the Williams, and we are now on lap 2. Prost, Tambay, De Angelis, and Piquet going through the Marlborough Bocht, the chicane, on the second lap in this 71-lap race.
It's going to be interesting to watch Nelson Piquet's progress relative to Alain Prost. Here you see the two of them, because in the warm-up this morning, Piquet was not very quick, but he does tend to sandbag. There's Niki Lauda coming through just behind the Ferrari there, challenging. He's made up a few places on the first lap. But Piquet was not quick this morning in the warm-up, but then he tends not to be. Prost was comfortably quickest. Lauda was second quickest, but he was in trouble. He was a good bit slower than Prost. But it'd be interesting to see if Piquet can confirm this form, because he pulled out a bit on the first lap and he looks pretty comfy in front.
Well, already Nelson Piquet is 2 seconds ahead of Alain Prost, and my goodness, the Williams there is going well as Patrick Tambay and Elio De Angelis go through. There's Tambay with the distinctive red flashes on the rear wing of his V6 turbocharged Renault, chased by De Angelis. Then Keke Rosberg well up, and Rosberg was well down on the grid. So the Finn, with his super reflexes working out over time as ever, is coming up through the field. Tambay third. There's De Angelis. Elio De Angelis in third position on the grid, and he's had a wonderfully consistent season. Here he comes. That's Tambay. There's De Angelis. They're going now round towards Bossuit, the 170-mile-an-hour bend, with De Angelis behind the Renault as Tambay accelerates away. That was Prost going through. Piquet is well on his way now, coming through to complete very shortly his third lap, and really stamping his superiority on the Dutch Grand Prix at the present moment, because his lead is increasing. Prost is in second position still. There goes, and Lafitte is now catching, and you'll see him take, I think, very shortly, Elio De Angelis, and Nelson Piquet is leading this man, Alain Prost, by 2.9 seconds. As the Frenchman goes through, it's a long, long race, and Alain Prost is quite a worried man in many ways now, because where last weekend in Austria he had the cushion of 4.5 points lead in the World Championship over Niki Lauda, the positions have been reversed, with Lauda winning in Austria and Prost there failing to finish, and it means to say that the Frenchman there is second to Niki Lauda and 4.5 points behind the Austrian in the World Championship.
Yes. Incidentally, Prost's tactics now, after a couple of mistakes this season when racing hard, he has a huge lead, of course, over Nelson Piquet, who is currently in front of him in this race. And I can assure you that Prost will not be trying to beat Piquet. I'm quite sure he'll be trying to beat Lauda. And, of course, he'd like to pick up the extra points of a win if he can get in front of Piquet, or if anything happens. But he is not going to race Piquet, and he's not going to try and keep with him. His concern is for Niki Lauda and to finish and to collect points. Lauda, of course, would have the same attitude to Piquet. It's Prost and...
Great stuff going on behind these two, because now, unseen by you, unfortunately, Keke Rosberg is up into third position. He has just taken Patrick Tambay as they completed the lap. And as you look at the screen, It is Piquet there, the Brazilian world champion, double world champion, leading the Dutch Grand Prix with Alain Prost, and Keke Rosberg really flying, and he was only in 15th position on the warm-up. So either the Williams team have been sandbagging and withholding their hand, or Rosberg has found some speed from somewhere totally unexpectedly, because he's up into 3rd position.
Yes, most extraordinary. They're really flying, and I saw Frank only 15 minutes before the race started, and he was looking fairly gloomy and said to me that they were really just going for the finish. And at that stage before the race, nobody keeps their plans secret. So I think it's probably a surprise to the whole team that they've obviously done a bit of tinkering with the car and hit it right, because Rosberg is certainly flying.
Piquet and Prost coming through now. Watch the picture at the back. There you see Keke Rosberg, and I'll give you the time interval between Prost, who is in 2nd position, and Keke Rosberg, the new 3rd place man, as he goes through to complete his lap. In 4th position, it is Tambay, followed by Elio De Angelis, and the gap between Keke Rosberg in 3rd position and Prost in 2nd place is 4 seconds. Here are Tambay, who is 4th, Elio De Angelis, who is in 5th position. Elio De Angelis is a Goodyear tyre user. Patrick Tambay is on Michelin's. Derek Warwick is behind De Angelis. So the two Renaults are sandwiching the Italian driver Elio De Angelis. As you look at the 3rd place man, Patrick Tambay, going up and over the East Tunnel, leaving the Marlborough Boch behind them. That's the chicane that they're going through now. Approaching Panorama, the 2nd of the new chicanes. So Piquet leads, Prost 2nd, Rosberg 3rd.
And there you see, of course, at the back of that bunch, Niki Lauda, who's, as usual, making steady but sure progress through the field. And I would anticipate that he'll be challenging Derek Warwick down the main straight with a bit of a toe. As we see now, the fast right-hander, flat out in 5th gear, onto the straight, and Lauda looks well-placed to get a draft and a pull from Derek Warwick.
Piquet is leading by 2 seconds now. And what a scrap behind Keke Rosberg in 3rd position. Here it is, and Niki Lauda is moving up through the field. He has just taken, we just saw the end of that passing manoeuvre, Derek Warwick in the Renault. Lauda, who started 6th on the grid, is moving up through the field. He's now 6th on the race, having lost some positions initially. So there is Tambay, De Angelis, Lauda, Warwick, and still Nelson Piquet leads the Dutch Grand Prix with Alain Prost, the World Championship 2nd place holder, 2nd.
As Lauda went through that group, or rather past Derek Warwick, with surprising ease on the straight. So Lauda will be happy that his car is quick on the straight, because that's where overtaking has to take place. Let's just watch him now with De Angelis to see, of course, both, and he's having a look down the inside for the hairpin, but I think that with that speed on the straight, if it's the same compared with everybody, Niki will be quite happy to leave his passing and just do it on the straight. He's well placed, he could even get 2 of them this time.
Yes, and look at this. Jacques Lafitte, in the 2nd of these 2 cars, the Williams, is closing up on Derek Warwick, who's in 7th position. So the Williams situation has been transformed, with Keke Rosberg there in 3rd position. There's Tambay 4th, Lauda going through and taking 5th place from Elio De Angelis, and right with Patrick Tambay now. The McLarens are showing their form, especially Niki Lauda. Lauda, of course, has got the goad and the incentive of knowing that Alain Prost, his teammate, but behind him now in the World Championship, is ahead of him in the race. Lauda means to catch Prost. There are no team orders at all in the McLaren team, except that they should not take each other off.
Yes, and Lauda really has his biggest possible incentive this weekend and for the rest of the season. And as one of the Ferraris looks like Alboreto in the pits, Michele Alboreto, and he's getting out of the car, which usually means that's the end of the day's work for him. But Lauda, to whom money is dearest and closest to his heart, has not yet agreed financial terms with McLaren for next year, having a little bit of a look there down the inside at Patrick Tambay. but he's well placed to do it on the straight now as they go up through the fast right hand and takes them on. But Lauda is in, at the moment, disagreement with McLaren's about his terms for next season, and what he really wants to do is to win the World Championship very badly, so that he can, as it were, name his price, which at the moment they're not meeting. Well, he's named it, but they haven't agreed. And now goes Lauda, up into fifth place.
Well, Niki Lauda really is going through the field. A typically superb bit of driving, because he's now behind Keke Rosberg, who is in third position, ahead of Patrick Tambay in the Renault in fifth place, Elio De Angelis in sixth position. And although Rosberg has charged up from a lowly position on the grid up into third position, he started in seventh place on the grid. I think it's not going to be very long before the man you're looking at now, number 8, Niki Lauda, double world champion, winner of 4 Grand Prix this year, catches and passes Keke Rosberg, and then will set about catching his teammate Alain Prost. So now, on lap 9, out of 71, it's Nelson Piquet leading, it's Alain Prost second, it's Rosberg third, Lauda fourth, Tambay fifth, De Angelis sixth, Warwick there in seventh position, and behind Derek Warwick, Jacques Lafitte eighth, Ayrton Senna is ninth, Theo Fabi is 10th, Arnoux is 11th, Boutsen is 12th, and out of the Dutch Grand Prix have gone Manfred Winkelhock and Michele Alboreto. Now this is the battle for third, or was. Here it is. It's Rosberg and Lauda. This is Tarzan. As you see, Nelson Piquet is the fastest man on the circuit. 1:20.9. Nelson Piquet compares with the lap record of René Arnoux, 1:19.35. Rosberg in the white and yellow Williams, Lauda in the red and white McLaren, battling for third position.
Well, as the cars went past the pits last time, I roughly timed Lauda as about 8 seconds behind his teammate Alain Prost, and that is, of course, the man he'll be most interested in. But first, he's got to get past Rosberg, and this will be interesting to watch. Now, they're coming down into the very slow, tight chicane, braking hard, Lauda having a little look, and then they go up through the fast, flat-out right-hander onto the straight, and that's where Lauda has got to pass Rosberg. But this Honda engine is pretty powerful, and the Williams is pretty aerodynamic, and Lauda's a little bit further behind than he'd like to be ideally placed as they start their way down the long straight.
Winkelhock is back into the race. Lauda is coming to the fastest part of the course, 180 miles an hour. This is where he could take Rosberg, but Rosberg's not having any of it. He slams the door firmly in the Austrian's face, retains his third position. Lauda fourth, they're breaking away a little bit from Patrick Tambay, who is in fifth position, followed by Elio De Angelis. Derek Warwick seventh, Lafitte eighth, Ayrton Senna ninth in the Tolman Hart. They go out, round the Hugenholtz, up towards the Rob Slottermacher bends, now to the daunting Skivlak, which is a fourth gear, 150 mile an hour bend, on towards the chicane, and I expect Lauda to try to take Rosberg again as they come down to Tarzan.
Yes, he's going to have to get everything absolutely spot on right as they come onto the straight. That last lap then, he was not quite as close to Keke as he would have liked to have been, and he paid the penalty because although he towed up to the back of Rosberg's Williams, he wasn't able to get past him. Now, this is where he's got to be absolutely tight on Rosberg's gearbox, and he's not.
That's a Brabham out down there. Now, is it Fabi or is it Piquet? I don't know, and I'm not going to hazard a guess. It's too important, obviously. But certainly, either Theo Fabi or Nelson Piquet are out of the Dutch Grand Prix. It looks like Nelson Piquet, in which case there's a change for leadership and a change now for what is second place. And once again, we have the McLarens in first and second places, with Alain Prost now leading on lap 12, followed by number 8, Niki Lauda. Third position is Keke Rosberg, and it's certainly Nelson Piquet who is out. And look again at the replay of Lauda taking Keke Rosberg, as we forecast, at the end of the tremendously fast straight into the second gear, 180-degree Tarzan bend, and now he's got clear air between himself and the Williams Honda. Keke Rosberg, who is third. Can Niki Lauda catch Alain Prost and increase his World Championship lead? And there's a tremendous battle going on for fourth position.
Yes, it looks as if we're coming down to two separate races here, Murray, because Lauda has hitherto been comfortably the fastest and most impressive-looking car driver combination on the circuit, and I'm not quite sure who that is. Can you see, Murray?
Well, it's an Acela. It's Ginzani.
Well, that's no great loss to our entertainment, with the greatest of respect. And Lauda is chasing hard for Prost, and I would anticipate that he's got the pace to catch him, and this huge battle is going to develop behind. I anticipate that Lauda will go away from this crowd, but I suspect we're going to get a big battle behind for what is currently third place going on. Great shame that we lost Nelson Piquet, taking a bit of spice and entertainment out of the race, but to see the two McLaren drivers doing battle, because believe you me, they both want to win that championship very badly indeed.
Renault desperately needs some race success with either one of their own cars or one of the JPS Renault-powered cars of Team Lotus, and they're well up in the running order now, because, as you see, with Prost and Lauda leading, Rosberg third, Patrick Tambay is in fourth position, Elio De Angelis in the Renault-powered JPS is in fifth position, and then it's Derek Warwick in sixth place, ahead of Jacques Lafitte seventh, Farby eighth, Senna ninth, and René Arnoux in 10th position in the Ferrari. And Michele Alboreto out, so there's only one Ferrari left, in a situation where Arnoux won here last year in a Ferrari, and Patrick Tambay, then in the Ferrari team, finished second. So it's a sad Dutch Grand Prix for the Italian team. Over the line goes Lauda, and he's now just 1 second ahead of Rosberg, and there is the battle for fourth. Tambay leading De Angelis, and Alain Prost now is some 8 seconds ahead of Niki Lauda, and we of course are going to be timing the gap between them, because as both James and I have reiterated, and will no doubt be doing again, the race now is very much between these two team members of the McLaren team, with the World Championship at stake. Prost leading, Lauda second, Rosberg third, Tambay in the position there ahead of Elio De Angelis, who is fifth, and behind De Angelis it's still Derek Warwick. There are the two Renaults sandwiching the Lotus, and you just saw Rosberg go through. Tambay, De Angelis, Warwick, who are fourth, fifth and sixth. Manfred Winkelhock back in the race. That means lap 13, car 7 leads Prost, car 8 second Lauda, car 6 in third position is Rosberg, 15th in fourth place is Tambay, 11 in fifth place is De Angelis, 16th in sixth place is Derek Warwick.
And now that we've got the McLaren 1-2 situation, I've been watching the gap between Alain Prost and Niki Lauda, and Lauda, they seem to be holding station pretty much. So their cars, or their car driver combinations, seem to be very evenly balanced, apart from the fact, of course, that Prost has something close to a 9-second lead on Lauda. The other thing that surprised me is that Lauda didn't pull away from that group behind him as quickly as I had expected.
I said earlier on that Prost and Lauda were in a different tyre situation, and it's going to be very interesting indeed to see if that affects their relative positions later on in the race as the tyre wear develops. Now, Prost there has caught Manfred Winkelhock, who we reported at one time as being out of the race. Well, he was in the pits, and he's now rejoined, having had a dreadful practice period for a dreadful season. And Manfred Winkelhock, who is now lapped again by Alain Prost, has expressed in very clear words, there is the Brabham BMW of Nelson Piquet out of the Dutch Grand-Prix when he was leading. And Manfred Winkelhock, as I was saying, has expressed in no mean terms what he thinks of the ATS team and his intention not to drive for them after this year. Huub Rotengatter is in the third of these cars. He's been lapped, that's the Dutchman. But it is Patrick Tambay in fourth position, Elio De Angelis in fifth place, threading their way through the field as Nelson Piquet walks back, sadly, the reigning world champion, and that is his 9th retirement in the 13 races in which he has taken part this year. He won in Canada, he won in Detroit, he was second in Austria, 9 did not finishes, means to say that he has now well and truly blown his world championship chances, and Elio De Angelis is all over the gearbox of fourth place man Frenchman Patrick Tambay's Renault as they exit the panorama bends, drop at about 150 miles an hour down to Fosse Wheat, take that at an even faster clip and exit over the West Tunnel down the long 180-mile-an-hour straight, and this is where the handling of the Renault seems to be marginally better because Patrick Tambay is slightly ahead.
It's a really terrific battle going for third place now. You see them all there. We've got 4 seconds separating third, which is Rosberg, right down to Fabi in 8th place, with only a small gap back to Senna. So lots of possibilities here in the middle group, and there's another fastest lap finishing now. He's definitely the fastest man on the circuit at the moment, and he is now slowly but surely closing the gap on teammate Alain Prost.
And watch the back of this group because there's an interesting development there. Teo Fabi, the little Italian in the Brabham BMW, the teammate of Nelson Piquet, has hauled himself up through the field from 10th position. He's now in 8th position, but more importantly, he's right up with Tambay, who is 4th there, De Angelis 5th, Warwick there 6th, Lafitte 7th, and the next car in 8th position is Teo Fabi. And the way the Brabham BMW is going, and the way Teo Fabi really needs another good result, there he is, the last of these cars, having finished 4th in Austria last weekend. I'm expecting him to start making his way through this clump of drivers. Lap 18. Prost leads Lauda by 5 seconds now. Rosberg 3rd, Tambay 4th, De Angelis 5th, Derek Warwick is 6th, Lafitte is 7th, Fabi closing up in 8th position, Senna is 9th, 10th is Arnoux, 11th is Boutsen, and 12th is Nigel Mansell. Patrick Tambay doggedly sitting, as he's perfectly entitled to, on the fastest racing line, therefore giving Elio De Angelis in the black and gold JPS car no chance to get by. Their cars are very evenly matched. They both have exactly the same type of Renault V6 engine. Patrick Tambay has not had a good season by his standards either, because he has failed to finish in 6 races, didn't start in Canada because of his leg injury, and Tambay, De Angelis, closing up on a tail ender. No, they're not closing up on a tail ender at all. They are closing up on Keke Rosberg, who is in 3rd place, and I think has just taken Jonathan Palmer. It looked like Jonathan Palmer in the Ram. So there's going to be 4 or 5 drivers all together for 3rd position very shortly, going over the line now. Rosberg. And Tambay is going to be taken. No, he's not. Elio De Angelis comes out. They have both lapped Jonathan Palmer. And De Angelis just missed the opportunity to come up alongside and try to take Tambay.
Yes, De Angelis must be getting a bit frustrated because the way he's been climbing all over the back of Tambay's car, I would say that he would be quicker than Tambay, but he just hasn't got the speed on the straight to do it. And really, when cars are this evenly matched at Zandvort, the only real place that you can overtake without your opponent making some sort of an error is on the straight, and De Angelis just doesn't seem to have the straight line speed to get alongside Tambay on the straight, which is what he needs to do to get inside and out braking into the Tarzan corner.
Well, the third place man, Keke Rosberg, has got past one of the Ram cars. He's coming up now to Philippe Alliot, number 9, and
this back marker might be just what De Angelis needs, because it is possibly going to slow Tombe onto the straight, and he hasn't been given the room, and that will put De Angelis right up behind Tombe, but of course, conversely, Tombe has a tow from the back marker, but this is probably the best opportunity that De Angelis has had so far.
Rosberg into Tarzan, and De Angelis comes right up to the funnel. That is where the Armco narrows down onto the circuit, has to give way. They've both got past Alliot. It's still Tombe in 4th position, headed by Keke Rosberg 3rd, Lauda 2nd, Prost in the lead. You saw in an insert there, Marc Surer, the Swiss driver, out of his arrows to retire to join Nelson Piquet, Ghinzani and Michele Alboreto, the Ferrari driver. And now on lap 20, 71-lap race, it's still Alain Prost. Niki Lauda is chipping away at Prost's lead. It's now 4.5 seconds. It was 5 not so long ago, and Lauda has got plenty of time to catch his teammate. In 3rd position, it's still Rosberg. Just behind Rosberg is Manfred Winkelhock, who has been lapped and is about to be caught and passed by the red-winged Renault of Patrick Tombe. 4th, Elio De Angelis 5th, Warwick 6th, Lafitte 7th, and Teo Fabi is still right up with them in 8th position. Round panorama. There's Keke Rosberg, you see. Winkelhock taken by Tombe, but not by De Angelis as they go into Boss Sweet, and off. No, I was about to say off goes Winkelhock as his left rear locked up, and you saw that puff of smoke, but he didn't go off. And the brave German, oops, he almost has De Angelis off the circuit.
Oh, yes, he did too. Well, I think it was a little bit rash of Elio to have a look there, but Winkelhock certainly took no notice whatsoever of that attempted overtake. And here they come, and you have a look again as De Angelis a little bit headstrong that, and he could possibly have damaged the bottom of his car. They're very high, those curbs, and he bounced it around quite a lot on that curb. So he's a bit cross with Winkelhock, and brave Germans, very apt that Murray just described Winkelhock as, because he does drive like a huge mobile accident. And I was watching him in qualifying on Friday, and he really is all over the road. But I think that's part of the German mentality, because I can't remember a German racing driver of any class who didn't feel that it was important to look brave as well as to drive fast. And certainly Winkelhock is well in that hairy-chested, He-Man macho-type mould.
I'm watching while you look at Niki Lauda to see Alain Prost, and Niki Lauda there in 2nd position. Now the gap has come down to under 4 seconds. This really is entertaining Grand Prix racing. You saw the red and white flash of Alain Prost's car just disappearing there as Niki Lauda came into the picture, and Lauda is increasing the rate of gain on Alain Prost. He's got one of the 2 Tyrrells in front of him now. It's that of the German driver Stefan Belloff in the Sistheim Tyrrell, who waves Lauda through, and it's going to be much closer than that 4 seconds it was on the previous lap. The crafty Austrian double world champion Niki Lauda is catching Alain Prost. Prost will soon have the unnerving experience of seeing a red and white car in his mirrors, and he won't need any telling who that is. And the race will then be well and truly on, and the gap is now 2.9 seconds.
Yes, now this is really a major examination for Alain Prost. Pressure has been his problem in the past. We've seen him now, I think, 4 times in the last 3 seasons make what I'd call semi-unforced errors under pressure, but he's been a little bit unlucky. It's always been a problem. First in Monte Carlo 2 years ago, he spun off when leading very near the end of the race on a slightly damp track because we had a little bit of a shower of rain, so those were difficult conditions. He tangled with Nelson here last year when he was poised to win the championship and the pressure appeared to be getting to him, and he then failed to do so. Dallas, when he was leading, a very important race for him to sew the championship up, he went off, and then again last weekend in Austria on a bit of an oil slick, but the others didn't go off. Now, with his teammate catching him, this is a real examination of his ability to race it out under pressure with that World Championship dangling over his head, proverbially.
And it's Stefan Johansson in the second, the tremendously fast Swedish driver who's being tipped for the Tollman team for Monza, provided Martin Brundle, who I'm glad to say is here, is back in the Tyrrell for the Italian Grand Prix. Martin Brundle very, very cheerful after his brilliant second place at Detroit, only to crash in practice at Dallas. And his leg is bending extremely well, and he's very optimistic about being back in Grand Prix racing soon, and it can't be too soon for his many friends here and all around the motor racing world. But Niki Lauda can now see very clearly indeed the man he is slowly reeling in, Alain Prost. There is Lauda. Look for Prost, there he is. What did I say the gap was last time? 2.9 seconds. And we are now on lap 24. Prost leading, Lauda second, Rosberg third, Torbay fourth, De Angelis fifth, Lafitte sixth, Warwick seventh, Arnoux eighth.
Well, you can see, if you watch carefully, you'll see just how hard Niki Lauda is driving. We saw him down through the long right-hander into the chicane, shortcutting over that low curve in the first section of the chicane, as all the quick men are doing. But Lauda now is turning on every ounce of his skill. He's definitely very much at 11/10.
And the gap with Warwick off and Winkelhock out is now 3.1 seconds. The gap is increased, and Derek Warwick, who was in 7th position, off and out with Manfred Winkelhock. There was obviously a coming together as Warwick lapped Winkelhock.
Yes, and having seen the way Winkelhock was behaving with the early leaders going past in the way he shut the door on De Angelis, who admittedly was a bit headstrong in his attempt, but I suspect there was a coming together, and I would think that if there was, then Derek Warwick will have a few words to say to Winkelhock, because Winkelhock rejoined the race. He's had trouble, he's not in contention, and he got himself amongst the leaders, and he just simply wasn't letting them through, and it's a back marker's job to make way for the leaders. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if Winkelhock is a pretty unpopular man amongst his colleagues. And there again, Lauda edging ever closer to Alain Prost, where the real battle is going to start up at the front. And Prost a little bit held up there.
Held up by Hoob the Tube, the tall, lanky Dutchman, Hoob Rotengatter, who has now been lapped by Prost, but in the process has delayed the Frenchman and allowed Niki Lauda to get even closer. The gap now is only a whisker over 1 second as Prost goes into Tarzan. And Tarzan was where Alain Prost, challenging Nelson Piquet for the lead, took the Brazilian off last year. There is a very disgruntled, I suspect, Derek Warwick, waiting to have a sharp interview with Manfred Winkelhock. It wasn't Winkley Bootson, as the caption said, that had gone off. It was Manfred Winkelhock and Derek Warwick. And as I say, Derek Warwick with every chance of finishing well in the points again in what's been an excellent season for him as far as his driving is concerned, out of the Dutch Grand Prix, as is Winkelhock. And now Elio De Angelis is slowing down and seems to be, according to our lap charting and timing here, in trouble. But this is the interest. Second in the World Championship, 4 Grand Prix victories this year, Alain Prost. There is Lauda. These two men have dominated the Grand Prix scene this year. 8 victories between them, 4 each, and it looks as though one of them is going to make it 5. Which one? goes into Tarzan, chasing Prost. Nigel Mansell is starting to move up through the field. He's gained 5 places from 12th to 7th. He's now almost in the points. On lap 27, Prost leading, Lauda there second, Rosberg third, Tombay fourth, a slowing Elio De Angelis still fifth, ahead of 6th, René Arnoux in the Ferrari, doing what he has done so many times this year, benefiting from the Ferrari's reliability, although it is far from the fastest Grand Prix car this year, but he's in the points, with Mansell chasing him in 7th place.
Well, this battle up front is very interesting now, because Alain Prost appears, with the view of Lauda in his mirrors, to have found a little bit more steam. He's just put up the fastest lap of the race so far, quicker than Lauda, and he now seems to be holding the gap. Lauda's having a little bit of difficulty getting on terms for that last second and a half or so that currently separates them.
And Alain Prost has got to get ahead of Eddie Cheever in the Alfa Romeo. He does so, going into Tarzan. And now Eddie Cheever will see another McLaren behind him, as Alain Prost comes up to one of the Ligiers. Is it De Cesaris? It's De Cesaris, of course, because we've established the fact that... And he waves him through. If I sound surprised, it's because I am. De Cesaris is not usually given to moving over and letting people through. He's a hard charger and sticks to his line. But he realised what the score was, realised there was nothing to be gained by trying to hold Prost back. As you see, the gap has come down from the 3 seconds it had increased to 2.3. And this is undoubtedly because Alain Prost, in lapping tail enders, and he's now lapped everybody up to the 12th place man, is being slowed up. Alain Prost, and he's on his 28th lap now. Cheever behind the Ligier.
Yes, well, it looks as if Cesaris let Niki Lauda through as well, because he's emerged with a clear road to Prost, and that was certainly a marked improvement by De Cesaris, who possibly has taken heed of the fairly heavy criticism he was receiving about his performance when being lapped, and certainly behaved immaculately then in letting the leaders through without hindering them at all.
There's Eddie Cheever in the second of the 2 Alfa Romeos, who's not yet officially signed for Alfa Romeo for 1985, but told me he has expressed his intention of doing so. And Nigel Mansell is speeding up all the time, and he's getting very close. Now, indeed, he's up into 6th position ahead of René Arnoux, as we're watching the battle between the Ligier and the Alfa Romeo. And there's a lot of activity down there in the Spirit pit. That's right at the end of the pit lane. It's Hub Rotengatter, who's blown engines in Austria and had some troubles here in the Dutch Grand Prix, but qualified 27th, took part in the race because of a special dispensation, and the John Wickham Gordon Koppach team have got him into the Dutch Grand Prix, but they can't apparently get him back into it after his pit stop. There's John Wickham on the left, and Rotengatter is getting away, and this is the leader. This is lap 30. That is Alain Prost. He's followed by Lauda. Rosberg is still soldiering on in 3rd position, but he's now some 29 seconds behind the McLaren of Alain Prost, the leader. 6 seconds ahead of Patrick Tombay, who is still 4th. Elio De Angelis is still 5th. Up into 6th position has come Nigel Mansell. So Renault-powered cars are 4th, 5th and 6th. Tombay, De Angelis and Mansell. Down to 7th has gone Arnoux. 8th is Thierry Boutsen in the Arrows BMW. And in 9th position, it's Riccardo Patrese, as Alain Prost takes the Ram Heart of Philippe Alliot. And next you will see Niki Lauda doing exactly the same thing. And we're not yet at half distance in this race, which once again, with the disappearance of Nelson Piquet, is being dominated, as virtually every Grand Prix this year has been dominated, by the superb McLaren team. And if they win here in Holland, it will be their 9th Grand Prix win of the year, to beat the previous record of the John Player Special Lotus cars, which with Mario Andretti and Ronnie Peterson at the wheels in 1978 scored 8 memorable victories. And it certainly does look at the present moment as though the McLarens are going to make it 9 and therefore a record. Lauda, there he is, 2nd position. Pulling away from Alio. Not gaining at the present moment on Alain Prost. And the Zandvoort circuit this year does not seem to be suffering, or anything like as much as it has in the past, from its big problem of having sand blown across from the sand dunes onto the surface of the track, creating in effect thousands, if not millions, of tiny little marbles on which the cars can slide off. And that's because the wind, which often is a real hazard at Zandvoort, is only a breeze today. It's humid, it's hot, there's a light breeze, it's not disturbing the sand, and it means to say that Alain Prost, the race leader, and Niki Lauda can really get on with it. And I'm going to give you the gap now as they go through. Prost goes through, completing the lap. Now Lauda goes through. It's 3.2 seconds. And so on lap 32, there is the race leader, Alain Prost, leading his teammate Niki Lauda 2nd, Rosberg 3rd, Torbay 4th, De Angelis 5th.
Sondern am liebsten bei Williams, dagegen wehrt sich freilich im Augenblick Keke Rosberg, weil er sagt, man müsste Teamkollegen auch nach ihren Charakteren aussuchen, und Menzel scheint ihm nicht allzu sehr zu passen. Ron Dennis hat sich im Training den Scherz erlaubt, oder besser gesagt, hat ein Experiment riskiert. Er hat die Funkverbindung mit dem Williams-Fahrer Keke Rosberg aufgenommen, mit jenem Gerät, das von Frank Williams benutzt, aber Williams war auf der Strecke den Fahrer zuschauen, weil er gesagt hat, er muss Piloten fürs nächste Jahr suchen, und da hat Ron Dennis einfach mit der Sprechgarnitur mit Keke Rosberg, der gerade trainiert hat, Verbindung aufgenommen. Möglicherweise oder vielleicht, weil Dennis wissen wollte, ob es möglich wäre, im Weltmeisterschaftsfinale Funkverbindung zu den eigenen Piloten zu haben. Sowas gibt es ja bei McLaren nicht. Hier ist Lafitte ausgeschieden, der Franzose war lange unter den ersten 10. Lafitte wird wahrscheinlich zu Ligier, seinem langjährigen Team, zurückkehren. So, zurück zur Funkverbindung und zurück zu den Boxen. Ganz oben im Bild haben Sie die Ferrari-Box. Vorbei rollt der Italiener Andrea De Cesaris mit dem Ligier. Überlegt sich, ob er bei Ligier bleiben soll. Je nachdem, wie gut der neue Ligier wird, den De Cesaris erstmals heute in 2 Wochen in Monza fahren soll. Naja, das war schon ein aufsehenerregendes Experiment von Ron Dennis, weil sofort natürlich die Frage auftauchte, überlegt Dennis sozusagen Lauda und Prost im Weltmeisterschaftsfinale Vers zu lenken. Die Fahrer möglicherweise über Defekte der anderen Piloten zu informieren. Das wollen Sie alle sicherlich wissen, warum Piquet ausgefallen ist. Er hat ein Ölleck im Motor gehabt, also Motoröl verloren, und das war der Grund für den Ausfall des führenden Nelson Piquet. Passiert in der 11. Runde. Ui, und da hat auch Andrea De Cesaris Öl verloren. Sie sehen, dass die Mechaniker sofort Sand genommen haben, um die Ölflecken in der Box zuzuschütten. Keke Rosberg fährt ein sehr starkes Rennen. Bei De Cesaris kann es sich nur um einen Motorschaden gehandelt haben. Arnoux mit dem einzigen Ferrari, der noch im Rennen ist, der Franzose, der heuer immer noch ohne Sieg dasteht, liegt an 7. Stelle. 57 Sekunden Rückstand. Überrundung, De Angelis hat Gardner, nein, nicht Gardner, sondern Bellof überrundet. Ich hoffe, liebe Zuschauer, Sie haben zu Hause ein besseres Bild als ich hier in Zandvoort. Jo Gardner liegt an 18. Stelle, hat unverändert 2 Runden Rückstand. Zwischen Prost und Lauda 3,5 Sekunden. Vorsprung auf Rosberg beruhigend. 37, dann Palmbe 47, De Angelis 53, Menzel 54, Arnoux 59, Patrese an 8. Stelle 1,08, Butzner 9. mit 1,9 und Fabian 10. mit 1,18. De Angelis unmittelbar vor Nigel Menzel, hinter Menzel Stefan Bellof. Menzel braucht jetzt auf die Lotus-Team-Taktik keinerlei Rücksicht mehr zu nehmen. Aber das hat er eigentlich nie getan. Hat De Angelis schon während der letzten 3 Jahre mehrmals auf offener Strecke bekämpft. Boxenstopp bei Ram Hart, das ist das Team von John McDonald. Im Bild der rothaarige Engländer, der den Wagen vorne hochgebockt hat. De Angelis also 5. Menzel 6. Auch Lotus heuer noch ohne Sieg. Lauda überrundet Theo Fabi. Nein, das ist noch der führende Alain Prost. Prost hat Fabi überrundet, damit nur noch 9 Fahrer in der gleichen Runde. Und als nächster überrundet wird Thierry Boutsen, der Belgier, mit dem Aeros BMW, 5. von Zeltweg. Für BMW läuft es heute nicht so gut wie vorigen Sonntag. Wie geht's weiter? Fabi 4. Boutsen 5. und Zura 6. 4 also unter den ersten 6. Heute keiner unter den besten 6. Fabi hinter Boutsen an 10. Stelle, also Platz 9 und 10. Piquet ausgeschieden, Zura ausgeschieden. Und Winkelhock in der ersten Runde schon Schwierigkeiten gehabt und dann, ich nehme an, mit Derek Boy karamboliert. Runde Halbzeit im Grand-Pri von Holland. Der Vorsprung von Prost ist größer geworden. 4,5 auf Niki Lauda, dann Rosberg, Palmbe, De Angelis und Menzel. 4,5 also liegt Niki Lauda hinter Alain Prost. Möglicherweise hat die Aufholjagd vom 10. Platz noch etwas zu sehr die Reifen beansprucht. Optimal liegt der McLaren von Niki Lauda nicht. Hoffentlich tauchen keine Überhitzungsprobleme auf. Hoffentlich war es richtig, den Kühler zu wechseln. Und hoffentlich hat Lauda auch keine Probleme mit dem Drehzahlbegrenzer wie im Freitagtraining. Und keine Probleme mit dem Ladedruckregler wie heute im Vormittagstraining. Trotz dieser Probleme war Niki Lauda neben Alain Prost der Einzige, der heute Mittag mit vollen Tank unter 1,20 fahren konnte. De Angelis, 5. So, jetzt haben Sie Jo Gardner im Bild. Er liegt zwischen Palmbe und De Angelis. Gardner an 16. Stelle. Gardner liegt 7 Sekunden hinter Alliot und 50 Sekunden vor Palmer. Palmer war an den Boxen, das haben Sie gesehen. Rottengatter, Johansson, Tampe, De Angelis. Dann Gardner und dann Menzel. Gardner fährt also zwischen den beiden Lotus mit, vor ihm Elio De Angelis und hinter ihm Nigel Menzel. An die Box kommt ein Renault und zwar Patrick Tampe. Keine problemlosen Rennen heute für Renault. Wolk von der Strecke abgekommen, Tampe, Reifenwechsel. Verliert damit seinen 4. Platz mit Sicherheit an De Angelis und fällt vermutlich auf den 8. Platz zurück. Nächster Boxenstopp Thierry Putzen. Der Belgier lag zuletzt an 9. Stelle, war bereits überrundet. Runde und der Vorsprung von Prost 4,6. Hier wird der nächste Boxenstopp fällig. Runde und Lauda 4,4 hinter Prost. Wie gesagt, es ist durchaus möglich, dass sich die Strecke während des Rennens verändert hat. Es gibt alle möglichen Gründe. Vielleicht, dass ein Reifen besonders viel dünnen Sand aufsaugt. Passiert im Sandfeld immer wieder. Dadurch werden die Abrollumfänge der Reifen größer und die Reifen sind dann am Ende des Rennens eigentlich größer, als sie vor dem Start waren, obwohl man eher das Gegenteil annehmen müsste, weil üblicherweise ja Gummi abgefahren wird. Theo Fabi vor Niki Lauda. Theo Fabi liegt an 9. Stelle. Durch die Boxen stopfen nur noch 7 Fahrzeuge in der gleichen Runde. Prost, Lauda, Rosberg, De Angelis, Menzel, Arnoux und Patrese. Dann eine Runde Rückstand, 8. Tampe, 9. Fabi, 10. Putzen, 11. Chiva, 12. Eno, 13. Johansson, 14. Belov mit 2 Runden Rückstand. Jo Gardner ist 15. Ja, hoffentlich hält auch der Osella endlich einmal einen Grand-Prix durch. Wir sind beim Lotus-Zweikampf De Angelis gegen Menzel. De Angelis ist 4. und Menzel 5. Dahinter Arnoux erstmals in den Punkterängen als 6. Gefolgt von Patrese, der bereits überrundet wurde, also nur noch 6 in der gleichen Runde. Patrese fährt sicher mit Angst im Nacken, dass der Sprit wieder nicht reichen wird. In Zeltweg zum 3. Mal in diesem Jahr der Sprit ausgegangen, auf der Strecke liegen geblieben, als er an 5. Stelle lag, also vermutlich 2 Weltmeisterschaftspunkte geholt hätte. Seit dem 4. Platz von Kyalami ist Patrese der Neufahrer von Alpha ohne Punkte. Die Alpha haben wenig PS, haben wenig Hochgeschwindigkeit, 273 Kilometer nur. Das ist kaum mehr als Osella oder sogar Tyrrell. De Angelis gegen Menzel. Dieses Duell passiert mit einem Rückstand von 1,6 Sekunden auf den führenden McLaren von Alain Prost. Über eine Minute also zurück die beiden Lotus, De Angelis Vierter und Menzel Fünfter. Lotus hat in Zandvoort ein paar Sternstunden erlebt. 1963 der erste Sieg von Jim Clark mit dem Schalenrahmen Lotus, also kein Rohrrahmen-Chassis mehr, sondern ein sogenanntes Monocoque, ein Schalenrahmen-Chassis. 1967 das erste Auftreten des Lotus Ford mit dem berühmten 3-Liter Cosworth-Motor. Jim Clark hat damals auf Anhieb gewonnen. Dann gab es noch 1970 hier einen Lotus-Sieg durch Jochen Rindt. Von Tragik überschattet, weil sein bester Rennfahrerfreund Piers Carriage damals tödlich verunglückt ist. Letzter Lotus-Sieg in Zandvoort 1978, Mario Andretti vor Ronnie Peterson. McLaren hat zum Vergleich überhaupt noch nie in Zandvoort gewonnen. Im Augenblick Johansson, Gardner und Theo Fabi. Dadurch hat Lauda in dieser Runde 2 Sekunden verloren und liegt jetzt 6,3 Sekunden hinter Alain Prost zurück. Der Abstand variiert klarerweise durch die Überrundungsmanöver, je nachdem, wer besser an den Gegnern vorbeikommt. René Arnoux, der Vorjahrssieger in Zandvoort und immer noch im Besitz des offiziellen Rundenrekordes von 1:19:350. Offizielle Rundenrekorde, wissen Sie ja, können nur im Rennen gefahren werden, nicht im Training. Die Überrundungsmanöver in Zandvoort sind immer sehr kritisch. Johansson, Lauda, Fabi, dahinter Gardner. So, und jetzt. Lauda am Tyrrell Ford vorbei. Hinter Lauda, Johansson, Fabi, Gardner, Patrese, und dann mit großem Rückstand die Lotus. Oh weh, und das sind jetzt 8,2 Sekunden Rückstand für Lauda. Hat es nicht leicht gehabt, der Österreicher durch diesen Pulk zu überrundender Fahrzeuge durchzukommen. Im Augenblick glaube ich nur ein Auto zwischen Prost und Lauda, nämlich der Ferrari von René Arnoux. Jawohl, hier haben Sie den Ferrari im Bild gehabt und da ist schon Niki Lauda. Hat immer sehr starke Rennen in Zandvoort geliefert. 1974 den großen Sieg über Klerigazzoni hier gefeiert. Es war ein sehr hartes und sehr dramatisches Stallduell damals zwischen den beiden Ferrari-Fahrern. 1977 noch ein lauter Sieg in Zandvoort. Wieder für Ferrari, sein letzter Ferrari-Sieg übrigens. Damals nach hartem Kampf mit Jacques Lafitte. Allerdings erst nachdem es zwischen Mario Andretti und James Hunt zu einer viel diskutierten Kollision gekommen war, ausgangs der Tarzan-Kurve. Arnoux mit dem Ferrari vor Niki Lauda, hält er den Österreicher auf oder nicht? Ja, jetzt hat er rechts gedeutet, überhol mich. Rechte Hand hochgestreckt heißt immer rechts überholen, hat Niki Lauda jetzt getan. 45. Runde und der Rückstand von Lauda 8,7. Wenn Niki Lauda Zweiter bleibt, dann bleibt er auf jeden Fall Weltmeisterschaftsführender. Aber Sie kennen ja seine Taktik, er möchte vor allem seine Führung in der Weltmeisterschaft ausbauen. Er möchte nicht möglichst beim letzten Rennen dann in Estoril in Portugal vom Glück abhängig sein. Eine Strecke, auf der Lauda noch nie gefahren ist. Prost schon, er fuhr dort einmal ein Formel-2-Rennen. Er hat gesagt, ich habe damals ein schlechtes Auto gehabt, die Strecke war sehr bucklig, sodass ich eigentlich keine Vergleiche anstellen kann. Jetzt bin ich in der Lage, Ihnen genau zu sagen, was da zwischen Winkelhock und Warwick passiert ist. Die beiden sind auf Öl ausgerutscht, und zwar auf Öl, das Jacques Lafitte, der französische Fahrer, mit dem Williams Honda verloren hat. Ein Motorschaden bei Lafitte. Ölverschmierte Fahrbahn, also genau der gleiche Defektausfall wie bei Alain Prost vorigen Sonntag auf dem Österreich-Ring. Er hat damit Schwierigkeiten gehabt, den vierten Gang festzuhalten. Hätte das möglicherweise trotz allem geschafft, ins Ziel zu kommen, aber er hat gesagt, er ist auf der Ölspur von Elio De Angelis ausgerutscht, und das war eben der Ausfall. Und heute das gleiche passiert mit Warwick und Winkelhock. Ich habe Niki Laudas letzte Runde gestoppt, 1:21,10. Das heißt, er fährt im Augenblick 1,3, 1,4 Sekunden langsamer als in der schnellsten Phase des Rennens. Fährt natürlich nicht so schnell wie heute im Aufwärmtraining mit den vollen Tanks, 1:19,3. Das war bereits unter dem Rundenrekord von René Arnoux. Aber die Strecke ist, wie gesagt, ölverschmiert. Nicht nur wegen des Motorschadens von Lafitte, da waren jetzt sicher auch noch andere Motorschäden. Jetzt haben wir schon sehr viele Fahrer in den Boxen aufgeben müssen. Sehr viele sind draußen geblieben. Und dann wird sich, wie so oft in Zandvoort, die Strecke etwas verändert haben. 9,7 der Rückstand von Lauda, und die Lotus-Zwillinge De Angelis und Warwick mit 1:12 und 1:13 Rückstand an 4. und 5. Stelle. Bei Niki Lauda also mit Sicherheit kein ähnlich dramatischer Defekt wie zuletzt auf dem Österreich-Ring, wo der vierte Gang explodiert ist, wo es ein Wunder war, dass Niki Lauda noch ins Ziel gekommen ist, noch dazu als Sieger. Lauda fährt also keine 10 Sekunden langsamer wie auf dem Österreich-Ring, sondern er fährt um etwas mehr als eine Sekunde über seinem normalen Schnitt. Hub Rottengatter mit dem Spirit Hart Der Holländer ist eine Grand Prix schon fertig gefahren. 10. Platz in Hockenheim. Hat nur starten dürfen, weil die Tiere quasi außer Konkurrenz mit dabei sind. Und jetzt Boxenstopp von Eddie Cheever. Liegt an 11. Stelle, eine Runde Rückstand. Naja, Zandvoort ist eine Strecke, auf der die Reifen härter beansprucht werden als auf vielen anderen Rennstrecken. Und Menzel. Rosberg ist die letzten Runden wesentlich langsamer geworden. Hinten sehen Sie bereits alle groß auftauchen. Es wird also Rosberg irgendwann einmal in diesem Grand Prix noch überrundet werden. Damit wird aus dem Lotus-Duell bald ein Dreikampf um den dritten Platz. Rosberg, De Angelis und Menzel. Rosberg noch Dritter, De Angelis Vierter und Menzel Fünfter. Runde und der Rückstand von Lauda 12,6. Ich bin fast sicher, dass heute im holländischen Grand Prix die Reifen mitentscheiden werden, wer diesen Grand Prix gewinnt und verliert. Prost und Lauda haben verschiedene Reifenwahl getroffen. Prost, harte Reifen, rundherum genau das Gleiche, das Niki Lauda vorigen Sonntag auf dem Österreich-Ring riskiert hat. Und Lauda hatte genauso wie Piquet und Warwick links harte und rechts weiche Reifen. Links harte deshalb, weil auch der Kurs von Zandvoort vor allem aus schnellen Rechtskurven besteht. Möglicherweise, dass Niki Lauda jetzt mit seinen rechtsseitigen weichen Reifen schon leichte Probleme hat, während Prost mit den harten Reifen rundherum offensichtlich keine Schwierigkeiten hat. Aber so ist das eben im Reifenkrieg. Achtung, Menzel gegen De Angelis. Und da hat Menzel im letzten Augenblick jetzt noch zurückgesteckt. Und Warwick hat und De Angelis hat ihm keinen Zentimeter Platz gelassen. Würde mich nicht wundern, wenn bei diesem Lotus-Duell De Angelis gegen Menzel es noch zu irgendeiner Kollision kommen wird. Für beide Fahrer geht es heute eigentlich um alles oder nichts, denn in der Weltmeisterschaft hat De Angelis nur dann noch theoretische Chancen, wenn er gewinnt. Lauda 14 Sekunden zurück. Hat ihn
remaining with James Hunt and Murray Walker.
So, Prost leads, Lauda second. The gap now has increased to 14, as you can see, seconds. And Alain Prost is right with the third, fourth, fifth men. That's Mansell. Round the top part of the circuit, down to Panorama. This is about 160 miles an hour they're doing down to Boswheat, an increasing speed here. Rosberg, and round go Mansell and De Angelis absolutely together, and Nigel Mansell has done it. He's got ahead of his teammate. He's up into fourth position now. Prost is going to take De Angelis, who is immediately dropped back as Mansell got past him. So Prost has disposed of one of those quick men. Still in the top 6 they are, don't forget. And Niki Lauda's going to face a big problem. But not for the time being, because the gap between himself and Prost is increasing all the time. It's 15.2 seconds now. Lap 53, the order. Prost leads 15 seconds ahead of Lauda. Rosberg is in 3rd position. Now Nigel Mansell is 4th. There, Elio De Angelis is 5th. The red and white car of Alain Prost has lapped everybody up to Nigel Mansell, who is 4th.
Yes, it was quite a fraught piece of manoeuvring coming down the main straight last time. Nigel Mansell was tucked up behind De Angelis. De Angelis took to the inside to force Nigel to go the long way around, but as Nigel got sucked up in the tow behind him, he then moved over and followed Rosberg, and that got him slingshot round the outside, and Mansell was having a look down the inside. He was right on the limit of braking, but he did it. Well done, Nigel. He's a little bit slow out as a result of that very on-the-limit manoeuvre, and he's really charged up now. Mansell is having a charge, but I think that's about as far as it will go. Prost takes the opportunity to rather cheekily nip inside Keke Rosberg down into the Hunsrück, and really the superiority of the McLaren is quite clear. But on the other hand, the Williams acceleration was pretty something. Now you see, now he locks his brakes, the car gets a little bit sideways there, he gets a little bit of a twitch on, but he held it well and he squeezed down the inside, and Nigel Mansell now moves up into 3rd place, and a very, very good drive indeed for Mansell, which will be interesting from his future. But Rosberg has now retaken Prost on acceleration away from the Hunsrück, and that will not be too much of a bother for Prost. I think he's now well ahead of Niki, not in any undue hurry.
That's Riccardo Patrese walking in, so the Alfa Romeo joins the list of retirements. That's to say Lafitte and Winkelhock and Warwick and Senna and Sura and Piquet and Ginzani and Alboreto. And Prost again takes Keke Rosberg. Now, the passing of Keke Rosberg by Nigel Mansell was an absolute mirror image of Prost and Piquet last year, even to the way that Nigel Mansell started to lose the car, but Rosberg was able to move over just a fraction more than Piquet was, as a result of which they didn't actually make contact, and Nigel Mansell is now into 3rd position. A rather bittersweet situation for Keke Rosberg, because he faces the possibility, we understand, of Nigel Mansell being in the same team as him next year, because all the rumours here are saying that Mansell will be in the Williams team next year with Rosberg and Lafitte out of it. And now Prost is fighting back, and fighting on rather, and taking Nigel Mansell, lapping Nigel Mansell, who is in 3rd position. Well, the bittersweet situation was because Nigel Mansell, in the John Player Special Lotus, took his possible future teammate Keke Rosberg, who has expressed himself as not exactly enamoured at the idea of having Nigel Mansell with him in the team. Prost has now lapped everybody in the race except Niki Lauda, who is 14 seconds behind him, and Alain Prost now is on his 56th lap. Watch him take, this is a replay, as he takes the 3rd place man, Nigel Mansell, who's followed by Keke Rosberg 4th. Elio De Angelis, we hypothesised, had got a suspension problem, and I emphasise that it is a hypothesis. We don't know, nobody's told us, but he certainly has lost a lot of speed. It was quite noticeable that after Mansell passed him, he went slower, then Rosberg passed him, and now De Angelis appears from the outside to be somewhat despondently trailing in 5th position, but it may well be a car problem. And behind them, there's a great scrap going on. I'm sorry to tell you about these things that you can't see, but we'll keep you in touch all the way down the field. Theo Fabi and Patrick Tombe are battling with each other for 6th position. which you see at the moment is held by Theo Fabi, ahead of the Frenchman in the Renault, as Prost comes through to complete another lap. Now, I wonder what the gap is between Prost and Lauda. I've got the stopwatch running. It was some 14.7, very nearly 15 seconds. And here is Lauda exiting Boswheat and on his way down. And the gap now is 15 seconds. So it's being maintained. Niki Lauda there in second place. 6 points for second place, 9 points for Alain Prost, the leader. 15 points for McLaren if they finish first and second. Another crushing demonstration. And it's by no means the first and second places that the McLaren team have had this year. Indeed, speaking from memory, I think it will be the fourth time that Prost and Lauda, or Lauda and Prost, have finished in the first two places. Such is the superiority of the McLaren team this year. And that, as I said at some length over the Austrian Grand Prix, is due not only to Ron Dennis, who's drummed up the money, but to John Barnard, who's spent it so well, the team designer, because John Barnard and Ron Dennis went to the Porsche organisation in Germany, who with hindsight were an obvious Grand Prix engine supplier, but whom no one else had thought of approaching or dared to approach. Having raised a very substantial sum of money, commissioned an engine from Porsche. You're looking at Keke Rosberg now, and Elio De Angelis is far from given up here. De Angelis is right up with Rosberg, who is in fourth place, and vying for that position is De Angelis. So Dennis and Barnard go to Porsche with the tag money, Technique Avant-Garde, and commission an engine, and how incredibly successful that engine has been. It's only a year old. Indeed, it was at this race, the Dutch Grand Prix last year, that Niki Lauda drove a tag-powered McLaren for the first time. Did well, but had to retire with a trivial problem not attributable to the engine. And since then, they have won 8 Grand Prix out of the 12 that have been held, and look like winning the 9th out of 13. But race positions, lap 58, 71-lap race, with Elio De Angelis, number 11, chasing Keke Rosberg, number 6 for 4th position, the leader, Alain Prost, 16 seconds now, and pulling away from Niki Lauda. 3rd, Mansell, 4th, Rosberg, 5th, De Angelis there, 6th is Theo Fabi, 7th is Patrick Tambay, 8th is Rene Arnoux, 9th is Thierry Boutsen, in 10th position it's Eddie Cheever, 11th is Francois Hainaut, and in 12th position Stefan Johansson, and that's a fine drive.
Yes, a little bit frustrating for De Angelis here because he's caught Keke Rosberg, but he was pretty slow in the part of the circuit where it mattered through the last chicane and the corner onto the straight, and he got too much air between the two cars to have a go at Rosberg on the straight. So De Angelis is going to have to try and find a way of getting out of those last 2 corners before the straight a little bit better, because he's got to be right up with the Williams Honda when they go onto the straight.
And the green and red car is the Alfa Romeo of Eddie Cheever. I said earlier on it looked as though Cheever was going to finish a race for a change. He not only looks as though he's going to finish a race for a change, but he's giving Elio De Angelis a very hard run for his money, as Rosberg, De Angelis and now Cheever lap again Hood Rotengatter in the Spirit Heart. And Eddie Cheever is not letting the fact that he's at least 1 lap behind Elio De Angelis deter him from trying to unlap himself. Cheever is in 10th place.
And once again, you see there that De Angelis has lost ground where it matters most to him, and that will be a frustrating thing, because from that range, it's going to be very difficult for him to get on terms on the straight and pass Rosberg's Williams. He seems to be quicker than him around this section of the circuit from now on, where they're going into the 2 hairpins and the back twisty bit, but it's just that final chicane and the corner onto the straight. He's losing too much ground, so De Angelis is going to have to get his thinking cap on to work out a way round the Williams.
And Cheever takes, does he? Yes, Cheever takes De Angelis, who... That's Hugh Brotengatter. Gordon Coppock said to me this morning, don't mistake our new colour scheme from McLaren. It's very easy. I thought for one split second that it was one of the two McLarens, but it's Hugh Brotengatter out of his own Dutch Grand Prix. And Elio De Angelis is now dropping back past. As cars pass him, he drops back, and then he seems to get a new lease of life and charge on, having lost a lot of ground in the process, having been unlapped. Eddie Cheever's unlapped himself, and Cheever is now hanging on grimly to Keke Rosberg. And it has to be said, as Alain Prost goes into Tarzan at the beginning of another lap, indeed it's his 61st lap, 10 to go, including the one he's on, with a 20-second gap between himself and the second-place man, Niki Lauda. It has to be said that Keke Rosberg is driving a marvellous race, because not even Frank Williams, not even Patrick Head, who designed the car, least of all Keke Rosberg, would pretend that the Williams Honda this year is as nimble as they would like it to be. The Williams team are learning that producing a good handling turbo car, because this is their first season with the turbocharged Honda engine, is extremely difficult. They produced a magnificent car. Now Boutsen, look at that. Boutsen has hit something. You can see that very clearly. I don't know what, because he's on the straight. And as you can see, his right front wheel is wrenched practically off the suspension elements. And Thierry Boutsen has only got to cross the track and clear the Armco, and he's right in his pit. Not a very welcome visitor under the circumstances. Thierry Boutsen, who was in 9th position, and we may well have quite a few cars dropping out now, because the stress will really be telling, with only about 9 laps to go for the lead cars. Nigel Mansell has gone ahead of Stefan Beloff, who is in 12th position now with the disappearance of Thierry Boutsen. And now on lap 62, the all-conquering Marlboro McLarens of Alain Prost and Niki Lauda make it another McLaren roadshow in 1st and 2nd places. Nigel Mansell has been lapped, so the two McLaren drivers can really feather it right back, turn the boost down if they haven't already done so, except that Alain Prost neither Alain Prost nor Niki Lauda will be anxious to be turning any boost down if they think it's going to affect their relative positions. That's Thierry Boutsen, top left, being interviewed, the man that you just saw get out of his car, clear the Armco back into his pits, explaining how on earth it was he came to lose a front wheel on the straight. So the McLarens, the all-conquering McLarens, race on in 1st and 2nd places, and Nigel Mansell has no hope of finishing 1st or 2nd, I would say, because the McLarens are famous not only for their speed and their handling, but their activity. They are the car of the year, and in just a few laps' time they are going to have made it a record 9 Grand Prix victories. Patrese went out, by the way, with engine failure. We saw him walking in some time ago with his Alfa Romeo. But Eddie Cheever's still in there, up into 9th position now.
And we just had a report that Thierry Boutsen's problem was that he actually collided with René Arnoux, and that would tally because just as he was pulling up on the other side of the track, we saw Arnoux come whizzing into the pits and change his tyres and rush off out again. So some sort of a coming together, probably on the corner coming onto the straight.
Retirements. Michele Alboreto very early on in the race. You're looking at Alain Prost now on his 63rd lap. Michele Alboreto out. Ghinzani, who had a bit of a shunt in the warm-up, but was perfectly okay. Nelson Piquet out of the race pretty early on. Marc Surer out. Boutsen now out, so both the Arrows failing to finish, and they were 5th and 6th in Austria. That's the fortunes, the changing fortunes of motor racing. Ayrton Senna out a long time ago. Derek Warwick out when he came together with Manfred Winkelhock, who also retired. Jacques Lafitte out, Patrese out, Hu Broten-Gatter out, and as I just said, Boutsen out. And you're looking at the determined René Arnoux charging hard, as well he may do, because he's now out of the points. He's down into 8th position at the present moment, and he wants those points. He's 4th in the World Championship with 24.5 points. But Elio De Angelis, who is 3rd in the championship, is ahead of Arnoux in this race, so there's not going to be a change there. Indeed, I can't see a change in the World Championship situation at the moment, except that, of course, as I said earlier on, Niki Lauda will only have a 1.5 point lead instead of a 4.5 point lead over Alain Prost. De Angelis will still be in 3rd position and Arnoux will still be 4th.
Niki Lauda is now some 25 seconds or thereabouts behind Alain Prost, and this brings me to wonder as to whether Lauda has now, in settling for 2nd place, has decided to slow it right down and not pressure Alain Prost. It was a tactic that he always used to employ, even when I raced against him many years ago. He'd settled for a place with a gap, he'd slow it down and not keep the pressure on the leader. And that's a tactic with which I strongly disagree, always have done. And we found out that if Piquet hadn't employed it last week, he would have had the Austrian Grand Prix on a plate, because for those of you who watched it, you may remember that Piquet slowed down once Lauda had passed him, which was, I understand, to conserve his car, and felt that he couldn't chase Lauda. And shortly after that, Lauda had this gearbox problem, which nearly cost him the race, and Lauda was going as fast as he could, with Piquet sitting along behind him, thinking that Lauda was playing with the lead, and therefore all Piquet had to do was go back to full racing speed, and he would have walked past Lauda. Now here, I would have thought that if I was in Lauda's car, I'd be keeping as much pressure on Prost as I possibly could, and pushing him all the way to the line, because we've seen him make mistakes under pressure. We haven't seen him make mistakes without pressure. So I would hope that Niki's keeping as close to him as he can. But I somehow doubt it, because that hasn't been his tactics in the past, although one would have hoped that he would have learnt from Piquet's mistake last weekend.
Yes, paradoxically, those of us who were watching television knew a lot more about what was going on with Niki Lauda than the Brabham team did, because we saw Lauda's arm and come out of the cockpit to signify that he was in trouble. And if the Brabham team had had a monitor that they had been looking at, they would have known.
They did have a monitor, Murray, and Bernie Eccleston, who owns the team, his job is to watch the monitor to see what he can gather, and he missed the Lauda problem. And for that reason, they are professional enough to do it, but unfortunately, although they were doing the right thing and watching their monitor as well as the race, but they have one man, as I say, appointed to do solely that job, to see what information you can get, which you can't get visibly from the track side, and he missed the crunch thing. So that was unfortunate for Brabhams. They were on the right track, but they missed it.
Well, what's going on here in Holland? There is Nigel Mansell in 3rd position, and he's got coming up behind him Alain Prost, who's looks as though it's going to lap Nigel Mansell very shortly. So Prost leading, Lauda 2nd. Actually, this is interesting. James was saying that Lauda has obviously settled for 2nd and is not pressurising. Prost has obviously settled for 1st and is not pressurising, because he hasn't caught Nigel Mansell again to lap him twice. Nigel Mansell has unlapped himself and is now again on the same lap as Alain Prost. I'm not going to read something into it and assume that Prost has got a problem, because I have no reason to believe that he has, and the gap between Prost and Lauda is 22 seconds. So obviously both the McLaren drivers are slowing down, and Nigel Mansell has benefited from that.
Yes, at this stage it's sensible too. They do have no overtaking instructions over the last 10 laps of the race, so Prost has no fear that Niki will pass him even if he catches, but I suspect that they both slowed it right down. They've got a huge lead on everybody else, and they're just going to tiptoe into the finish to avoid all risk, or every risk that they can possibly avoid, of overstressing the car or its fuel supply.
Well, look at that. Fastest lap, René Arnoux, 1:19.46. And that's only 3/10 of a second off his lap record. That's obviously because he's come into the pits, as James said, having had that coming together with Thierry Boutsen. That's Hugh Brotengatter in the inset. And René Arnoux is on new tyres, and if he can't finish high up, he's going to at least have the fastest lap in the race. And the reason he's going so quickly, of course, is not only because René Arnoux does not know how to drive slowly, and couldn't if he tried, I'm sure. He's a real charger, but because he is trying very hard indeed to get back into the points. He was in 6th position, and he is currently in 8th place, René Arnoux. He's got to catch the cars in front of him, which are Patrick Tambay and Theo Fabi, and I think, frankly, he's going to have a chance to do that as Niki Lauda goes through, completing his 67th lap. So he has only got to do 4 more laps, laps 68, 69, 70 and 71, to earn himself 6 points with another fine, reliable drive. And Eddie Cheever is out again. Well, Eddie has declared his intention of signing again for Alfa Romeo in 1985. That may surprise some people. This is his 11th retirement in 13 races. The reason is almost certainly the usual one. The Alfa Romeo cars are extremely thirsty. That's Keke Rosberg and Elio De Angelis fighting for 4th. The only 2 cars on the circuit who are actually fighting for anything at the present moment other than to finish the race. And Eddie Cheever, the unfortunate Eddie Cheever, has, I suspect, succumbed to the Alfa problem of excessive fuel consumption. They have to turn the boost down in the last 10 laps of the race always in order to economise on fuel, because Alfa Romeo, who have, like many of the other teams, experimented with electronic fuel injection, have not been able to perfect a system. And they are back on the mechanical fuel injection for this race. Designer Gustav Brunner told me yesterday. And they obviously have exceeded their 220 litres mandatory allowance. And a grumpy Eddie Cheever will be plodding back to the pits. René Arnoux, stationary, lap 69, the unfortunate Frenchman, the great trier, the great charger, who was forcing on new tyres, having come together with Thierry Boutsen, goes out of the Dutch Grand-Prix on lap 69 when he was getting close to being in the points again. Hard luck indeed. Very sick-sounding motor cars on the circuit at the present moment. Those that are left, effectively, of course, there are only 3 cars in the race. They are the 2 McLarens and Nigel Mansell, all of whom are on the same lap, now that Nigel Mansell has unlapped himself from Alain Prost that you're looking at the moment. The other 2 being Niki Lauda and Mansell, as into the pits comes Keke Rosberg, was in 4th position. Very hot the tyres are, of course. How is this going to affect Rosberg? Well, he's lost that place to De Angelis, and he's almost certainly lost a place to Theo Fabi. In fact, he's lost altogether, because just as René Arnoux exited the race in the very closing stages, so again has Keke Rosberg, and that is his 8th retirement of the year.
Yes, I'm sure it's a big disappointment for Keke, because he must have found it very encouraging today. The car went much better, I think, than anybody in the team had expected. That was confirmed by Jacques Lepitz's form early on in the race, and it really was a good charging drive by Rosberg, and therefore bitterly disappointing for it to come to an end so near the end, and some points for which he's been had very few this year.
That means to say that now on lap 71, the last lap, because there is Alain Prost starting it. It's Prost leading, Lauda second, another McLaren steamroller. Nigel Mansell, the only driver left on the same lap as the two all-conquering McLarens. Elio De Angelis in 4th position has been lapped. Into 5th position comes Theo Fabi, and into 6th position Patrick Tambay ahead of Francois Hainaut, Stefan Johansson, Stefan Beloff and Jonathan Palmer. And in the closing stages of the 71st and last lap of the Dutch Grand Prix, Alain Prost is coming home to make it his 5th Grand Prix win of the year, to close the gap in the World Championship between himself and his teammate Niki Lauda, who's going to finish second, to a mere 1.5 points, to increase the McLaren lead, massive lead in the Constructors' Championship even further, and in the process to make McLaren win 9 races, 9 Grand Prix in one season, and break the John Player Special Team Lotus record of 1978. Down then from Panorama, down to Boss Wheat, out of Boss Wheat, over the line, there is the flag, the winner, Alain Prost. This is a picture that we are getting so very, very used to seeing. The heartbreak picture for every other team, but the joyous, happy picture for the McLaren team, who are understandably and totally justifiably beside themselves with pleasure. Over the Armco, up the barriers, and that is Niki Lauda, who has finished second. And so, subject to official confirmation, it's a win. There's John Barnard in the centre with Joe Ramirez, the McLaren team manager. And it's a win for Alain Prost. Second, Niki Lauda. Third, Nigel Mansell. Fourth, Elio De Angelis. Fifth, Theo Fabi. Sixth, Patrick Tambay.
Den Sieger von heute, Alain Prost. Wieder 15 Punkte im Parallelbewerb der Konstrukteure. 9 Punkte für Prost dazu. 6 Punkte für Lauda. Lauda hat jetzt die letzten 4 Rennen hintereinander beenden können. In der Reihenfolge 1., 2., 1., 2. Vielleicht ist er also in Monza heute in 2 Wochen wieder einmal ein Sieger an der Reihe. Im Bild auch Jo Gardner. Müsste mit 5 Runden Rückstand 12. oder 13. geworden sein. Sieger Alain Prost, hinter ihm der Österreicher Jo Gardner. 14. Platz, 5 Runden Rückstand. Schnellste Runde René Arnoux. Noch einmal das Ergebnis des heutigen Grand Prix von Holland. 13. Lauf zur Formel 1 Weltmeisterschaft. Alain Prost gewinnt mit einer Fahrzeit von 1:37,21,4. 10 Sekunden vor Niki Lauda, 1 Minute 19 vor Nigel Mansell, eine Runde vor Elio De Angelis, gefolgt von Theo Fabi und Patrick Tambay. 7. ist François Hainaut. Und Alain Prost wird jetzt als Autostopper mitgenommen. Nicht Alain Prost, entschuldigen Sie natürlich, der ausgeschiedene Ferrari-Fahrer René Arnoux. René Arnoux, der langjährige Werkfahrer von Renault, der sich dann mit Alain Prost zerstritten hat, also als Autostopper des Renault-Piloten Patrick Tambay. 9 Punkte für Prost, 6 für Lauda, 4 für Mansell, 3 für De Angelis, 2 für Fabi, 1 für Tambay, 7. Hainaut, 8. Johansson, 9. Beloff, 10. Rosberg, 11. Palmer, 12. Alliot, 13. Arnoux, 14. Gardner und 15. Cheever. Einige dieser Fahrer am Ende des Rennens nicht mehr dabei, aber natürlich in der Wertung. Weltmeisterschaftsstand, unglaublich der Vorsprung von Lauda und Prost. 1,5 Punkte zwischen dem Österreicher und dem Franzosen. Das heißt, Elio De Angelis müsste schon alle 3 ausständigen Rennen gewinnen und Lauda und Prost dürften keine Punkte mehr machen. Dann bestünde für den Italiener noch die Möglichkeit, heuer Weltmeister zu werden. Aber diese Möglichkeit, glaube ich, besteht nur noch in der Theorie. Diskussion zwischen Prost und Lauda, und jetzt hätten wir sehr gerne ein Mikrofon bei den beiden McLaren-Fahrern, um dieses Gespräch mitzubekommen. Ich hoffe, wir haben Zeit, Ihnen auch die Siegerehrung nach Hause zu liefern. Alain Prost zum 5. Mal in dieser Saison Sieger in einem Grand-Prix. Niki Lauda hat 4 Rennen gewonnen, hat aber 3 zweite Plätze. Darum immer noch die Führung mit 1,5 Punkten Vorsprung. Prost hat eigentlich nur eine einzige Schwachstelle und das ist sein schwacher Magen, vermutlich nervenbedingt, weil er immer dann Magenschmerzen hat, wenn der Kampf um die Weltmeisterschaft dramatisch wird. Hier im Bild auch der dritte jetzt, Nigel Mansell. 2 McLaren-Fahrer und ein Lotus-Fahrer. Nigel Mansell in seinem viertletzten Rennen für Lotus Dritter. Niki Lauda nimmt es ein bisschen bequem jetzt bei der Ehrenrunde. Er überlässt dem wichtigen Funktionär den Vorrang, sich seinem Publikum auf der dünnen Rennstrecke von Zandvoort zu zeigen. Wie üblich ein sehr gutes und starkes Rennen Niki Laudas in Zandvoort. 2-mal Erster hier, jetzt 2-mal Zweiter. Davon abgesehen auch einmal Dritter und einmal Vierter. Alain Prost hat die Schatten von 1983 weggewischt, als er mit Piquet kollidiert ist. Eine ähnlich dramatische Titelentscheidung war ja hier schon einmal zwischen Jacques Lafitte und Carlos Reutemann, die 1981 ebenfalls beim Anbremsen der Tarzan-Kurve kollidiert sind. 14. Grand Prix-Sieg bereits für Alain Prost. Und das in einer Grand Prix-Fahrerkarriere, die erst 1980 begonnen hat. Die Weltmeisterschaft 1984 ist endgültig zum McLaren-Duell Prost gegen Lauda oder Lauda gegen Prost geworden. Interessant ist, wie man bei McLaren und wie man auch bei Porsche weiterdenkt, weiterarbeitet. Ich glaube, irgendwann einmal wird man ein 6-Gang-Getriebe machen müssen. Die Frage ist nur wann, denn im Augenblick, wie gesagt, immer noch das Ford Cosworth-Getriebe. Und dann hat man in Zuffenhausen bei den Porsche-Ingenieuren eine Idee, wie man einen Vorleitapparat am Turbolader montieren könnte. Ein solcher Test läuft gerade auf dem Prüfstand, um ein noch besseres Ansprechverhalten zu erzielen, weil man die Strömungsgeschwindigkeit der Luft etwas vergrößern kann. Bravo Alain Prost, bravo Niki Lauda und ein sehr starkes Rennen auch des Engländers Nigel Mansell. Unmittelbar nachdem er erfahren hat, dass am Dienstag der neue Lotus-Pilot Ayrton Senna offiziell vorgestellt wird. Für Mansell der Trainings-12., der in Zandvoort noch nie im Ziel war, auf den 3. Platz. Der berühmte Siegerpokal von Zandvoort. Niki Lauda hat schon 2 davon zu Hause, besser gesagt auf der Tankstelle am Salzburger Flugplatz. 1984, also die Marseillaise, die französische Nationalhymne für Grand-Prix-Sieger Alain Prost. Niki Lauda bleibt führend in der Weltmeisterschaft. Links im Bild haben Sie Vizepräsident Jean-Marie Balestre. Lauda ist gut gelaunt, Prost klarerweise auch. Es ist also eine kleine Panne gegeben bei der Hymne. In England beheimatete McLaren-Team, das heuer die Maßstäbe in der Formel 1 setzt. 5. Sieg für Prost, dazu 4 Siege von Lauda, 9 Siege, neuer Weltrekord in der Formel 1. Und 3 Rennen sind noch zu fahren. Monza in 2 Wochen, Nürburgring in 6 Wochen und dann Estoril in Portugal in 8 Wochen. Wer von beiden, Lauda oder Prost, wird dann in Estoril mit dem Champagner als neuer Weltmeister der Formel 1 auf dem Siegespodest stehen? Sie wissen, was Lauda gesagt hat, entscheidend sein wird das Glück und die Technik. Heute hat die Technik eigentlich keinen von beiden im Stich gelassen. Alain Prost hat vielleicht ein bisschen größeres Glück mit seiner Reifenwahl gehabt. Meine Damen und Herren, das war der heutige Formel 1 Grand Prix von Holland in Zandvoort. 13. Lauf zur Weltmeisterschaft. Alain Prost gewinnt zum 5. Mal mit einem Vorsprung von 10,2 Sekunden auf Niki Lauda.
Alain Prost in his 5th win of the 1984 season. Alain, a fantastic start. You and Nelson got away very cleanly. How strong did he seem in the opening laps?
I was careful, you know, and Nelson shows some softer tires than me, same as Niki. So I had to be careful at the beginning because I had harder tires, but I did not want to push hard to get him because the race was long and I knew that he tried to push hard to go away. So I was just waiting, and when Niki was just behind me, I had to push a bit harder, but everything was perfect today. There's nothing to do against me today.
Niki got within 3 seconds of you. Of course, you were aware of that from your pit signs and so forth, and your mirrors.
No, I had a big problem because they showed me Rosberg plus 17 and Niki plus 3, but I was sure that Niki was behind Rosberg. So I went a bit more slow. I said it's no problem, 17 seconds lead, it's no problem. And I've seen in my mirrors and Niki was behind me. So I had to push harder after that, but it was no problem, I was much quicker.
And at the same time, you were having some problems with traffic just when he was close.
I had some traffic, that was a big problem for me.
Now, some of the cars were running out of fuel at the end, having to run that hard. Were you worried about your fuel consumption?
I was worried a little bit, but I had 24 seconds Niki, so the end of the race was very slow for me, so I had no problem. I think I have no problem because we have no gauge on the car.
It could come as a surprise, that problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The fact that you're 1.5 points behind in the championship now, that's still a heck of an improvement over last weekend, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, 1.5 point is nothing, you know. I have to be in front of Niki the next race, and it's no problem. It's like if we were equal. So I think still 3 races, everything can happen.
How'd your golf game go yesterday? Did you win?
No, I play so bad at the moment. I have many things to sing, and I don't play so well.
Well, it seemed to have worked for you here, though. It must have helped a little bit to relax.
Yeah, it's good for relaxing, but I have to think about Formula One, and it's difficult to think about golf at the same time.
No change in the Drivers' Championship, although Niki Lauda now leads Prost by only 1.5 points, ahead of De Angelis, Arnoux, Piquet and Warwick. In the Constructors' Championship, McLaren increased their massive lead. Up to 2nd come JPS, down to 3rd Ferrari, in 4th position Renault, and in 5th place Brabham.
Nigel, an hour and a half's hard labour. How do you feel?
Only an hour and a half. I thought it was about 6 hours.
Well, in your team and in racing, you've done yourself a power of good today, but the paddock is seething with rumours that Senna is going to be driving for JPS next year, in which case one of you's out. If it's true, who is it going to be?
I'd hazard a guess that probably Ayrton Senna is going to join Lotus. As for who's leaving the team, probably there's a good possibility it will be me.
Well, if it was you, the rumours say that you might be going to Williams. What would you have to say about that?
Williams? Who are they? I don't know, Murray. It's very, very difficult at this point in time. I'm talking currently to 2 or 3 other teams, too seriously, and I should just be patient and try and do the best thing for me, for my career.
Well, I bought this in Austria last week. Fetching, isn't it? Lauda and Prost, world champions, it says. I thought then that they were being a little premature, but after what Alain Prost and Niki Lauda have done today, I don't think they are. We'll know soon, because in a fortnight's time, the next Grand Prix is at Monza in Italy. Join us for what will be another round of the McLaren Roadshow.